right, WAB brothers and sisters. It's time for a little spotlight inspired by potentially a listener of the pod. We don't know. This is just someone on Reddit talking about board games. I'm just assuming they might be a listener of the pod, because chances are good. But the Reddit thread was, what's a board game opinion that you disagree with that a lot of people think? And this person said that we're in a board game golden age. We're not in a board game golden age. This is an iron age where everything goes downhill. So this is D Marchi on Reddit. So they got me thinking, because I have basically been saying, I've been one of those people that's like, oh, this is a golden age of board games. And mostly I talk about this to like people who aren't board gamers, who, will talk to me at work. It's be like, oh, introduce yourself. Oh, my name is Victor. I play board games. Oh, board games. Oh, like Monopoly? I love Monopoly. And then I'm like, no, dude.
Scoff.
We are in the golden age of board games. We do not have to play Monopoly anymore. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. You're free. There's so many games out there that are so good. So I don't know. That's just been my line for a while. So then this person said this, and I was like, damn, am I wrong? No, it's the kids who are wrong. So I was trying to get a little bit of data around this, right? So I guess first of all, there's industry level, right? Just pure economics, market analysts type people. So if you look at those kinds of things, I found this Washington Post article that basically said this: we're in a board game golden age, and it's here to stay. And they linked to a couple market research firms, and I looked at their projections from 2025, and they are insane. They are this shit is going to the moon. It is increasing. The rate of growth in the board game industry is going up every year. So not only do we grow? Oh, we grew 5% one year. Next year we grow 6%. Next year we grow 7%, 9%. They're just predicting that's going to keep going up. The growth is going to keep accelerating, And I think we all know, since we live in a capitalistic society, growth is exponential and infinite and free, and nothing will ever come down. It will always go up. So that's kind of the market research side of it. They're just seeing it grow and grow and grow, and they're just all right, yeah, man, go make board games. It's lucrative. It's growing. All the kind of analysis I saw all said the same thing. Not a single one of them said oh, maybe this will kind of flatline, maybe this will dip. Actually, it's all going up and up and up and up. The only thing that I saw was that they were well, this might be a little bit slowed down by mobile gaming, because it seems like mobile gaming is growing a little bit. Not that I've really heard of. But what's interesting is, our friend you brought up, Ray Zombie, he works for a company that they're kind of a gaming, professional gamers, a team. And they compete in mobile games. I don't know if that's all they do, but I know one of their competitions they do is a mobile game.
Yep.
And I'm I didn't even know that there were competitive tournaments for mobile games too. They get on tablets, and I guess it's more standardized, but that's kind of the only thing that's been identified by anybody up until the tariffs. I don't think none of the things I read had accounted for tariffs yet, and none of them predicted that things would have tariffs, even though some of them were from January, after Trump was elected. They were just yeah, but I mean, who would do that? Who would be dumb enough to? So anyways, on an economic level, I guess everyone thinks board games are just going to keep flying. So this one had okay, the expected size of the tabletop gaming market in 2024, it will be doubled in 2028, and it'll be doubled again in 2032, which seems kind of nuts. I mean, they are including wargaming, collectible card games, and RPG sales. I mean, tabletop gaming is probably like tabletop and card and dice games I think are probably like 60% of what they're accounting for, which is probably what we would consider board games. So yeah, I mean, it kind of includes some other stuff, but it doesn't really look like that other stuff is accounting for more growth than, just classic BGs. But on the other side, the other thing I thought was interesting is that, like, part of what kicked off the main golden age, like we think about it, is Kickstarter, right? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of games really started, like, if you think about it, like Stone Age, Iron Age, blah, blah, blah. So you have the Stone Age, where you just have like these Egyptian games that we've discovered in pyramids that are like very simple versions of backgammon or something like that. Like, we don't actually know the rules. Like, the rules are lost, but it seems kind of like that. Then you had maybe like, our Bronze Age or something would be like chess, and Go. Things like that, like kind of a step up from like simpler games. And then you had like Monopoly and all the like the Milton Bradley kind of games get introduced, maybe like in the 1900s through the 50s. That's kind of like, like Iron Age or medieval, right? If you look at it that way. And then I feel like we hit this golden age, absolutely. Like obviously Catan set a lot of things off, but then like once like we started having Kickstarter, things just started really growing big, and it just seemed like it was going up and up and up and up. And I think, at least on Kickstarter, that's where things have kind of taken a dip. So I looked at the top funded Kickstarter games of all time, like the ones that raised the most money. It pretty much peaked like 2020, 2021. The most recent one on this list was 2022. Like, there hasn't been one that's broken into the top 10, like a Kickstarter that's raised money since 2022, and that was Marvel Zombies Zombicide. I guess there was more Marvel hype back then.
Games.
More Zombicide hype back then.
Yeah.
Number 4 was actually just the Wormwood gaming table. Maybe some people wouldn't include that. It's not directly a board game, but I feel like it's related. Yeah. Number 1, Frosthaven 2020.
Part of COVID.
Yeah. So, like, in this top 10, the earliest one was from 2015, Exploding Kittens, and then latest one, 2022, Marvel Zombies.
Do you know if Kingdom Death was in there?
Oh, that's number 2, baby. 2016. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of these actually are kind of like branded. So Marvel Zombies, The Witcher Old World, The Binding of Isaac, Nemesis, if you would consider that branded, like it kind of basically is. And then, yeah, a lot of these are really big games, like Kingdom Death Monster, Frosthaven, Nemesis Lockdown, Tainted Grail, and then Seventh Continent. Is that like a really big game?
It has a lot of expansions, but
yeah. That was up there too. But yeah, so like in that sense, it kind of seems like there was a period that we've dipped from, right? Like we haven't had one of these break into the top 10 in 3 years. Then you could also look at it as like the most backed, like the most individual backers versus most money, because a lot of these, obviously the really expensive ones raise a lot more money. If you look at top number of backers, though, it's still pretty much the same thing. It's like, Exploding Kittens from 2015 was the oldest one. The newest one was Binding of Isaac in 2021. Also Witcher Old World 2021 that are in the top 10. And there's actually a lot of here in here that are like Exploding Kittens, Bears vs. Babies, Joking Hazard, Trial by Trolley, Throw Burrito. There was a period from 2015 to 2019 that we were just in love with those kinds of games. But yeah, so I feel like there is a little bit of a dip in that sense. So I think like what it is that like one thing I saw a lot of these market research people say like, Hasbro specifically, is able to re-release a lot of old games with updated mechanics. And I'm like, oh, I think that's what's going on. Like, the casual market is growing like crazy because all these new mechanics and like better systems that, people have been like discovering recently in like the hobby designer kind of board game space.
Mm-hmm.
All these publishers are just like basically putting this into their old crusty games and like reviving them. And then all these people that are kind of like less aware of like modern board games are just like, oh, look, there's like a new version of, Pictionary, and like it's got like updated mechanics, and they're like, oh man, this is pretty lit, and so like stuff like that's growing. So I think that's what's driving a lot of that growth, is like maybe more casual people seeing that. And then I think it's kind of like the hobby board gamers who are feeling a dip, where it's like there was just this period where like there was all this unexplored space in board games for a long time, and we just like we're just growing and growing, like finding new things and like new mechanics. And then now it's like, in the past couple of years there's kind of been like less growth in that sense, like in terms of like new stuff that's kind of like shocking and like changed the industry. So like I feel like now it's going more in a I would call this our hedonistic age, our shameless age, kind of our grifting age. I think there's just like a lot of board gamers now who got into it, in the past 10, 20 years, who are older now and who have a lot more money and can afford to just buy like, let me get, the Frosthaven version with all the trimmings and all the minis and, $500 and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's where people in the hobby space are making their money. And I think a lot of us are feeling like, it just feels like a lot of these are just like kind of cash grabs and not really, pushing the boundary in any sort of way. But that's my theory. We're in our Caligula age, if you want to put like a Roman spin on it, where we're just like just spending ridiculous amounts of money on stuff almost like for status, than like, discovering new mechanics and things like that. But like, are y'all feeling that? Are y'all feeling like the golden age is over, or are y'all still like in the honeymoon?
I've been feeling like it's been over, personally. And your points, I agree with that. But I think I also have my own theory as to why I feel like it doesn't feel as grand or as, exciting as it used to. And I think the reason for that is, at least from from what I've seen, my opinion, right? I think it's because of oversaturation. I think, you mentioned all these Kickstarters, right? That have the top 10 Kickstarters, and how they, the last one was in 2022, but, just from that one, it's been a while since, a Kickstarter has broken the top 10. And I think the reason for that, it's because there's just so many of the same game, really. Like, you could say it's the same game, but just, one or two different mechanics. And, like if you go on Kickstarter, there won't be a week where like there's not this is the next best grand campaign game with 1,000 miniatures. I think that's where the golden age is over, because now there's no, kind of like you were saying, where it was like not pushing the envelope, but there's nothing more grand about it anymore. Now it's just, I guess the only grand thing about it would be it's new. It's new, and maybe it's tied to some IP, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, if I think an interesting statistic, right, that would kind of, back what I'm saying up is how many board games are being released every year, right? If we compare it between, not even going back that far, let's just say like 2010, and just kind of doing a comparison of how many how many board games are being released every year from 2010 to now, I'm sure the numbers are like exponentially growing, you know, like, and I think it's because companies see like, oh, hey, Frosthaven, Gloomhaven made all this money off of a campaign game, right? When that had come out, you know, there weren't really like campaign games with all these miniatures and stuff. Gloomhaven did it, and all of a sudden it's like an era of miniature games, campaign games. It's just like more of the same. So I think for me, the main reason why it's over is because innovation isn't there anymore. It's more just trying to be the next big board game, but not really adding any new mechanics. Now, granted, good games are still coming out. So there's definitely the outliers, right? I mean, I'm looking at Galactic Cruise. That came out this year. It's, I would say it's, very like Vital Lacerda influenced, but it's still a very good game. So good games are still coming out, but that doesn't mean as a whole the industry, I think the majority of it is just kind of repeats and clones, and it's kind of like rare to break from the pack when there's like thousands of games coming out every year, you know?
Yeah, we don't feel like this huge percentage improvement from like an older game, right? So probably back in like 2016 when Kingdom Death Monster came out, or, you know, was on Kickstarter, and was like, wow, this is so different, so new. Yeah. This is going to change everything. And then it's like, well, you know, you might get like 3-4 of those Kickstarters a year now, and like each one's probably like really good, but you just don't feel like this huge shift of excitement because it's so new. It's just like, well, you know, it's kind of like a better version of this game.
Well, it's funny you bring, you know, and the reason why I had asked about Kingdom Death is because I was one of the ones that backed it back in 2016. And I backed it because the concept sounded very intriguing. It was like, oh, you know, it's kind of like a darker board game, you know. It's not like the theme isn't like, I would say it's almost like for adults, you know, like, because you're basically like you can like create family members, and like, you know, the theme tends to be heavier, right? And that didn't really exist back then. Like board games like that were like not really like a thing. And then not only that, I remember when I bought it, even I was like, ugh, kind of like cringing a little, because I ended up paying, if I remember correctly, it was $300, and it was for like the base game, right? No expansions, just the base game. But it also included the gambler chest, which was like basically like a ton of miniatures that were promised at a later date. And so he would basically like roll a dice during the campaign, and it would unlock different things that would be included in this gambler's chest, right? I ended up getting the base game, and I mean, this game is huge. I mean, it's huge. Like, if he were to sell that today, this would easily break the $500 mark without the gambler's chest. I actually got the gambler's chest delivered like last year, so I guess
last
like
year,
8 years later. I actually thought it was just lost. I was like, oh, it's just a lost promise. At least I got the base game. No, he delivered 8 years later, but he delivered.
What a man of his word.
I went on the shop. You can buy a gambler's chest now, like separate, right? It only costs you like $500.
Let's go.
Just a little light $500.
By itself.
It was an investment.
It was an investment.
It's an appreciating asset.
And it was something that was he was able to pull off when board games were still like new, and like basically mechanics were still being, I mean, and I'm not saying that there's not mechanics that haven't been found, right? But I'm just saying like there was so much to like find. And now it's just kind of like, I see one of those games now on Kickstarter, and I'm just kind of like, man, I've already seen this been done like 20 other times. Like, sure, maybe there might be something like one thing that's a little unique about it, but like the excitement isn't there as much anymore. Like it takes a lot more for it to really like spark interest, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, and it's fractured now, right? Because there's just like so many more people into it. So it's hard for like all gamers to focus on one Kickstarter like it used to be,
Exactly.
probably. Even if someone
Exactly.
came out with like some crazy new game, you know, and be like, well, there's like three of those right now, and I'm probably only going to back one of them. So it seems like it'd be hard for a game to be so new, so exciting, that it cracks into the top 10 like this, and everyone wants it and everyone focuses on it, and it like beats
Yeah.
out the other competition, except if it's, you know, part of an IP, like you said.
Exactly. Exactly. I think it's just the market's so oversaturated. It's gonna be hard to beat that. To beat because you know, when one board game comes out, there's already 10 other board games on Kickstarter that are competing for that money at that time, you know? So it's just like it's tough. It's a tough market, and it just doesn't feel like the golden era for me anymore.
And I feel like that's kind of where I might say that that's kind of how I think that dude answered the question. Because if I look at it for myself personally, first off, I think golden eras, it's not like Civ where we can just be like, oh, we're in a golden era. I think all golden eras and eras are like majority like retrospective. So like we can always say like when we look back at like 2016, that was the year where it was like goaded. And like 2016 through 2020, like a lot of those summers and like just the vibes were just like a lot better before COVID. Like once we went through COVID, we were just like, oh, we never realized how good we have it. I think if I were to say if we're in a golden age, if we're not in a golden age, I would say the industry for sure is still in a golden age because of all the points you guys talked about with the oversaturation. That can be looked at as now there's more choice. So when you have 10 BGs and it's like, oh, okay, like this seems to be pretty interesting, you also are more likely, if you're playing with a board game group, to be able to sell like two of those games to one of your people, two of those games to another person, two of those games to myself. And you know what I mean? Like it's a lot easier to curate and cultivate a better and more like refined collection because there's just so much stuff out there. And that's personally what I would prefer to see because it's almost just like back in the day when we had the big three consoles where it was either GameCube, PlayStation 2, or Xbox. Xbone had your Halos, God of War, Gears of War, all that stuff. PlayStation 2 had like your Call of Duty and all that other kind of stuff. Like the 2Ks, like all the sports games are better on the PlayStation. And you had Nintendo with like Mario Party, Super Smash Brothers, and all that stuff. We never look back there and say, oh, because there was just so much different stuff going on, that wasn't a golden age of gaming. In my opinion, having like diverse and just very curated markets for specific types of people, like that's what makes it so lit. Because it's like if you look at us three on this pod, we're all heavy gamers. So anytime we need to pick somebody, like pull somebody up the ring of like, hey, you're in like these light games, the party game mode, and like you want to try something a little bit harder, yeah, like come mess with your boys. But on the same token, those are the same people that can pull us back down into the grassroots and be like, hey, there's this really lit party game. And like party games are really stepping up their stuff because as they're getting more eyes on the exposure, that product is getting better. How good does it feel to have different games to play than Cards Against Humanity and Apples to Apples? For the longest time, those were the only games that you could really play and that everybody was like super into. It drove me absolutely insane because like we have to be honest with ourselves and say like not everybody's gonna like Galactic Cruise. Like I love that game. Like that game is always gonna be like that's probably gonna inch its way up into like my grill. Another game that's in my grill is Gemini. You don't have a diverse population to just sit down and just break that game out, you know, willy nilly. But So Clover, that's pretty clever. First Contact, all of those other games that can help ease people into and actually play the games because like that's what we're here for. We can have our flavors of heavy games all we want to, but I don't think that oversaturation in the market necessarily is a bad thing because it's helping so many more people get to where we are. And it also allows us to play games and be exposed to games that we probably wouldn't even like look at. For example, Things and Rings. Like, had I not been, on the trail of figuring out what's the hotness from, like Gen Con and Origins, all that kind of stuff, we probably, if we were in a board game store, we would look at Things and Rings and be like, man, that's some kid shit, and like pass over it and not give it the time of the day. But that game's lit. Courtesans is also a game where it's like that would be a coin flip had I not done any research of like would I actually buy this game. I did a little bit of research and I'm just like, oh, this is a pretty unique thing. Like that sounds fun. Oh, great, we played it, and like that gets off the shelf kind of frequently just because
Yeah.
I've gone from buying year over year probably like 75% less games. Like I'm already in my curated and like almost like end funnel phase where I'm probably going to be kickstarting like maybe 2 to 6 games every quarter, every half year, all that kind of stuff. And we got to let that young life live and, really get into the league and like start backing those, like 5, 10 games. And also going to the stores, getting those like random party games like the alphabet soup and all that kind of stuff. And just how we were throwing stuff against the wall in the beginning and like half that stuff stuck, so we math traded it. They got to go through that too. And that's breathing life into the industry and actually, giving those new ideas because new ideas start at like the grassroots. Like you can't have like this huge, big, like creative, super, super big idea that's going to cost somebody $150 because like there's not that many people that are going to go out on a limb on that. But if you get like your little beta test on it, put it out for like the $25 to $40 range, more people will hit it. You'll say like, oh, there's an audience for it. Now you make your heavier game based on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's like so many, like just, yeah, the more people that get into it, the more innovation will happen eventually. It just won't be like as big leaps and bounds as it was before. Like computers, right? Like it it's kind of hard to even tell like how much faster computers get sometimes, because like they'll get faster, but it's like, you know we just don't even notice it as much, even though it's like so much wildly faster than it was in the past. Maybe an even better analogy would be like the like movies. Everyone talks about like the Hollywood golden age, right? Like the 50s, 40s, 50s, where it was like the major studios controlled everything, and like every movie they put out was like so carefully crafted and like a banger, a classic. But for me, I go back and watch old movies and I'm like, yeah, this is very good. But then like I mostly would rather watch modern movies, and no one considers like current day Hollywood and movies a golden age at all. But I'm like, I wouldn't want to go back to the 50s and be like, oh yeah, we don't have Christopher Nolan back here. We don't have, Villeneuve. We don't have all the directors that you like to watch in the modern day. We don't have those because this is better. This is the golden age, right? And so like same for that, it's like it was like a golden age in one sense, but it's like we go back and it's like, well, there's no So Clover yet, there's no Things and Rings yet. It's like, well, this doesn't feel better,
See, and for me, like you're using the movie analogy, and I'm just like I can't help but be like, no, it was the golden age, because like now I'm like, there's a million Marvel movies that I'd rather never see in my life. And it's like...
Yeah, but like how often are you watching movies from the 50s versus like modern movies,
I mean, I feel like it's pretty often.
Really?
Me personally, right? I mean, I'm sure like the average viewer maybe not, right? But like, I mean, I feel like I'd rather watch a movie like based off of like what it's about, not really when it came out,
Yeah,
so
like I mean,
like,
there's a lot more, I guess, stuff to wade through. Might be called trash, but like, there's also stuff that's really good. So like it used to be, it was just the movie studios making movies, so I guess they were like really responsible about like making every movie good, and they were competing with each other. And now it's like so spread out. So a lot of it is just whatever. But there's like, since there's so many more people making movies, every once in a while, like you get something that's like so much better, at least in my opinion. It's like, I mean, I'll go back and watch a movie from the 50s and like, I could think it's great, but I'm like, I didn't enjoy this more than like a really great movie from modern times, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends what being in a golden age means, right? Is the industry booming? Is it making a lot of things that people are taking advantage of? Or is it that the best stuff is coming out at the time? Like what is like the true definition of being in the golden age, I guess?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it is the stuff that's coming out resounding with what not only you see the audience wanting, and like how well are you capitalizing on that. So when we talk, that's why I always say golden ages are retrospective, because another example y'all can look at is music. Like there's a reason why they have like 70s hits and 80s hits. Like if we were in the 70s, like the same trash music that we hear now, like they were listening to it, but like in disco version. Like time
Mm-hmm.
allows the great filter to happen, and like all the poop waves to the bottom, and all the really pristine stuff is at the top. Like if we're dropped into 75, like there is so much garbage that we would have to wade through to listen to like the Bee Gees,
Yeah.
or like, oh, there's Earth, Wind, and Fire. You know what I mean? Like people, like, what's a hit while you're, listening to it. But there's also a lot of stuff that you might really, really mess with. Like it is fire, but a lot of people don't like it. And so like that gets filtered out. And you're just kind of like, oh, well, what about, this archaic band or this archaic band? And I feel like if we applied that to board games, I feel like last year, especially on Kickstarter, that was the year of your boy. Because I don't think I've ever backed that many games, and hopefully I get them, tariffs, notwithstanding. So it's just like last year, I could easily say set me up for a golden age like this year.
So with that, right? I guess just to play devil's advocate,
Yeah, hit me.
did you back them because the best games to you came out, or was it just because you were more learned? You were a more learned man about board games, and you were able to make better decisions of what kind of games you wanted at the time to back.
It was both. So I was not only more learning, but I was like, this speaks directly to me. And then I was also able to bring along some BG homies, and I was like, well, I really don't want to back this, but you should definitely back it because, like, the fam eats. And so I was sending out Kickstarters to everybody.
Yo, those
Some people
ads.
took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. And I'm like, see, this is what I'm talking about when it comes to we don't know if we're in a golden age yet. But I was
Yeah.
just like, there are signs that this is a very, very good time to be a board gamer, because not only have I brought people up, but like we are playing very, very current things like to this day. And like that is informing people on saying, like, yes, if tariffs weren't a thing, and if we were in like sane civilizations geopolitically, I would be backing far more things. Like, I have completely turned off Kickstarter, and it's not board games' faults. That's why I'm so like farm to tabletop, so invested in like seeing what's actually in retail now, because it's like I still want to support the industry, because I still see that there like is some hot fire out there. Now, granted, when I go into the board game store, do I walk past a lot of doo doo butter? I absolutely do. However, when I first started, I didn't know I was walking past doo doo butter, and I would make that investment. You know what I mean? So when you walk through and like you see all the games on like the game shelves and all that kind of stuff, all that stuff is but a lot of people are buying it because they wouldn't be selling it. You know what I mean? So once again, like the great filter will tell us in about 5 or so years if this is actually a golden age, if we're going to be hitting a decline. But in my personal opinion, I feel like it hasn't there hasn't been a better time to be a board gamer, because there's just so much out there. There's so many points of entry that are like actually good. We're on the tail end of Catan, Codenames, and Ticket to Ride, because people are starting to run out of excuses on why you're still playing Catan and Ticket to Ride, because there's so many more better games that are like so readily available. I'm gonna harp on this one more time. Do you know the last time I played Cards Against Humanity was before COVID? It is so good to just be like, yo,
I'm
we have
free.
like other games that we can play, and people are just like, instead of saying no, 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 we should play apples to apples, or no, 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 we should really play Cards Against Humanity. They're just like, oh, show us. Like the entire narrative, and like maybe that's what Stranger Things helped in that, because D&D became super cool because of Stranger Things. I don't care. That sounds great because now like people are more open to the idea of tabletops, board games in general, and like I don't know, man. Like that, it just all signs culturally and all that other stuff points to we're in a really, really good time for board games. And to say that we're not in a golden age because, I mean, could we not be in a golden age because tariffs and all that stuff is accounted for? That is a different conversation. But when it comes to
Possible.
just like non geopolitical stuff, influencing that, I think we're in a very good time.
See, to me, I think when I think golden age, I think, and you kind of briefly touched on it. I think COVID. I think COVID was the golden age because that's when people were kind of pushed into board games because they were stuck in their homes, in their apartments. They couldn't do anything. And so what did they do? They turned to board games. They were like, "Oh, there's already all these board games out," because by 2020 there were plenty of board games out. And that's kind of where the industry really saw an increase in amount of people that play board games. Like in fact, during COVID, when all these businesses were going, out of business and, whatever, you had companies like Games Workshop. I remember reading an article on them. They're basically the ones that created Warhammer 40K, like one small army of like 5 miniatures cost like $50. They actually made like a killing during COVID years. So like I when you're saying golden age, I'm thinking COVID years because that's what pushed people and increased the industry and the basically the pool size of buyers and board gamers into the industry. So that's kind of my definition of golden age because that's where we saw that market growth.
Yeah, and I can feel that because I can also push back and say like that could be the beginning of it. And once people got into it, once brands started putting money behind it, that kept that engine going. Because like, golden ages can last for, up to I think like what, 50 years or so. And it's like we could also see a continuation of that now that the tariffs are happening. People are just like, well, we won't be kickstarting. We'll now support our friendly local game stores, and if you are like House Rules, who is very competently ran, he's hosting board game meetups and board game demos like weekly to be like, yes, don't worry about the tariffs. I will supply you with new hot stuff. You will come and you will build
I got
community
you.
and we will all play board games together. Hopefully, more friendly local game stores are doing this. I know that, Common Grounds here in Dallas is doing. Obviously, House Rules is doing it. It is very collectible card game based because I feel like that's still what keeps the lights on. But yeah, like actually doing like almost like the grassroots stuff. Like in COVID, people yes were forced into it, but I feel like they're about to be forced into it if they haven't been forced into it again. You know what I mean? To like either play the stuff that's on their shelves and like really kick back on the Kickstarters and really try to build that community either with the friendly local game stores because they like them and they want to keep them in business, which we should, um, versus exiting the industry in its entirety.
I think community is another big place where it's definitely a golden age because like so many people are probably feeling like socially, I don't know, just like not great with social media and everything, like being online, right? Like people feel disconnected from each other. You're just anonymous on Twitter, telling people to kill themselves or whatever. So like I've seen a lot of people use board games as community, not necessarily like the designer board games that we play, right? Like they'll be like, there's like a big Austin backgammon scene, I think. Um, then there's also like a big mahjong scene that's like starting to pop up, like things like that, and like chess I think is really big in like a lot of cities where like they'll have like a chess cafe. So like people are using board games like for community, like for something that you meet up in person, and then you're not just on social media by yourself. You like meet people, you get to see them face to face. So I feel like in that sense, it's catching on like a lot more than it has in the past, right? And partly because of COVID, like you were saying, Tony, a lot of people got into these board games, and now they're just like, huh, I can go like meet new people with these board games. They can become like a way to make new friends and like meet up with strangers, because like I think that used to be basically like church for a lot of people, or like if you were in the like the stonemasons club or whatever. People used to be in a lot of clubs and societies.
You bring up a good point, which kind of makes me have a question for you, Victor, and that's I actually was one of those people pre-COVID. I would go weekly to a Go club.
I know you were a Go head.
Yeah. I mean, I played for like years pre-COVID. There was a Go club, like we would go, some friends and I would go like every Thursday into this Go club, and it was hosted in like a Central Market, actually.
Central Market.
Yeah. But I guess, what kind of makes me wonder, right? We're talking about golden age of board games. But you mentioned, when you were mentioning these groups, and I'm sure there's outliers, but I feel like for these groups, they do tend to gravitate toward the games that have been around for ages. Chess, Go, Mahjong, backgammon. Why not the new ones? And again, I'm not saying there's none. I'm not saying, but if there are, they do tend to be the outliers, because I do feel like if there is in high school, there were chess clubs, right? I'm sure maybe now there might be some board game clubs, maybe. I don't know. But I know for sure there were chess clubs. And I know that there definitely is chess clubs in Dallas. I know that there is, the Go Club in Dallas. So my question to you is, I mean, why classic games, right? Like if we are in the golden age, wouldn't there be more of the new stuff, I guess?
I think there could be over time, but like I guess for it to catch like really mainstream, it has to really stand out, right? So it's kind of hard for something like that to break from the just huge stream of new board games we're having all the time and become something that catches on mainstream. I mean, the closest we've gotten, I think, is Codenames. I think Codenames was really huge, and it kind of like popped up in unexpected ways, where like I started seeing a lot of people play Codenames online through like homemade implementations or whatever, and then be like, oh, you should play this game, it's called like Spy versus Spy or something, and I'd be like, oh, how does it work? And I'm like, that's Codenames. You just, I guess, found like a free version on some browser or whatever, and then you say you play it all the time. So like I think it's hard for those games to catch on just because there's so many, and like it's so split, and like for it to become a normal group like you had with Go, right? There has to be like a big group of it, and us gamers who are like plugged into the cutting edge, we're always playing something new. So it'd be kind of a hard sell to be like, hey, come to this board game meetup every week. We just play something new and hard and heavy every single week. You just never know. You just have to be into board games themselves as a topic rather than like this specific game. So, I mean, I don't think it's impossible. So, like, Codenames is probably like one of the best examples. Well, even like things like Exploding Kittens, I think, really took off in especially like younger groups. Like I remember my little brother, he never really played a lot of board games, like I had moved to Austin from Dallas by the time I was like getting into board games, so I didn't really like introduce him to anything. And then I would tell him about board games, and he'd be like, oh yeah, me and my friends play Exploding Kittens all the time. But like he wasn't necessarily into board games as a hobby, or like it wasn't really something he thought about. But like Exploding Kittens was just something people played in middle school all the time.
Do you think that he was playing it though because of the game, or do you think he was playing it because it was an IP before the game? Because it started off as a comic.
Oh, I didn't even know it was an IP. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was. So
I think it was definitely like a school thing, like someone had it at school and it just kind of caught on and everyone played it. But yeah, I don't actually know how he first started. He never brought up being into Exploding Kittens as an IP before, but yeah, I don't actually know.
Yeah, I mean, and again, the market back then wasn't as saturated either, right? So like, I feel like those type of games have more room to flourish because we're mentioning code names, but I'm also thinking First Contact, right? Like, what if both of those came out around the same time? Would code names still be code names if First Contact had come out around the same time? I don't know.
I think Codenames walked so First Contact could run. You know what I mean? So I don't think
Yeah,
they could have. Like, I think the person thought of First Contact, which is like, how do I make Codenames better? You know what I mean? So I think
right.
if he came out with with First Contact first, somebody may say like, oh, well, how do I make First Contact easier? You know what I mean? So even though it's like chicken or egg, I feel like Codenames has like an easier entry point. So I'm glad Codenames came out because then we got First Contact. But to circle back to your point about like Go and all that other stuff, I do think that those, so like chess, Go, Mahjong, those are like Beano's, board games in name only. You know what I'm saying?
Vaginas.
Whoa. Well, now that's a hot take right
Ooh.
there.
Well, no, I mean like you'll see where I'm going with this, but it's like there's so much backloaded cultural, just ingrained, just like I wouldn't say like dogma, but like okay, like in the black community, we know how to play dominoes, you know how to play spades. If I wanted to say like, yo, like here's a trick taking game, what the hell is a trick taking game? It's like, well, it's like spades. Why don't we just play spades? You know what I mean? And so when it's like when you think of chess, you think of like, oh, okay, yeah, granted. I can play, you know, like Galactic Cruise or I can play Twilight Imperium. But like this chess game that I grew up playing with my father or I saw, you know, smart people doing and so like I want to do that. Like it's more universally understood. That doesn't make it a better game. It just makes it it's an easier point to build these connections that you either had as a child with your parents or grandparents and stuff like that. I'm looking at Go and Mahjong because like Go, like brother, you go to Japan, like those Go heads go crazy, but they've been playing for like generations, and like that's what you know kids were raised on. Same thing about like Mahjong. Anytime I see Mahjong and I see like an old Chinese lady, I'm just like she's about to like just run my cheeks because like she just knows. Like it's one of those things where like you get on a dominoes table and you see like old black people, like they're gonna clap my cheeks because they just have this innate feel for the game that they've been playing literally for like 50 years. And so when you build that kind of community, it's almost just like you have like a heritage community built into your board game. So if we today we're just like, yo, I'm going to ride or die for Santorini. I'm going to raise my child playing Santorini. That is all we are going to do. And like, if we all made a conscious effort to like get like you know, two or three couples together and like started to build that
Seated.
community, in like 50 years, Santorini might have like a very very strong community. But like, that's what it would take to upend those games. So I don't necessarily think they're you know better than what the board games the industry has
Ooh.
to you know
Ooh.
offer, but it's just like there's so much heritage baked into that you're not gonna knock them off the throne. Like they got too much. They've been shooting in the gym like before we were born. So that's just what it's gonna be.
Okay, okay. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, to be honest with you, Aaron. Especially with Go.
Cook me,
Uh,
King.
well, the reason is because I feel like the strategy for I'm just talking Go specifically. Like, it's the only game that like an AI computer, has not been able to be like the number one player of, Go or whatever, right? There's like a billion moves that can be happening in Go, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like when you say there are better games, I feel like that just ends up being like a relative thing. Like like an
Absolutely.
opinion. Because you're right. I mean, when you say there's like heritage tied to it, I mean, you're correct. I mean, there were emperors playing Go, right? Like, I mean, it's been
Hmm.
around forever. But I think that just because it has been around forever, I don't know if it necessarily takes away from like the quality of game that it is, right? Now, like, dominoes, for instance. I don't know I don't know if I've ever played dominoes correctly, to be honest with you. I feel like maybe I probably have, but like, like you're kind of tied down to like the domino pieces you're pulling out, etc., right? But like I feel like in Go there's so many different possibilities and strategy, and like that's what makes the game tick. And there's so many different like starting points, and like there's just so much strategy. I think yes, while it does have heritage, while it's been around for a long time, I think that's what makes the game live through time, right? It's that it is a good game. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with that. Like I don't think that the fact that it has a community tied to it because it's been around for a while, I don't think it necessarily makes it a well, you weren't saying it was a bad game, but that there's better games, I guess. I'm what I'm saying is I feel like it can go head to head with some of the games that are out today and win, come out ahead. And I'm talking good games that are out today. You know what I mean?
That's interesting because I've never been into any of those kinds of classic games. I mean, I've never played Go at all. I've tried chess before, but it just doesn't seem that interesting to me because it's like it just seems like it's solved. It doesn't seem very exciting to learn it. It seems like a memory-based game. Like you just remember all the different scenarios, and then you can just beat someone who doesn't know the scenarios like you do. And it's just like, I don't know. It just seems like an experience-based game. And it's like, I mean, I've played Destiny. I've played games where you have to grind out to get like a better character, and like it was fun. But like, I don't want to keep playing Destiny forever.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep grinding. And then I don't know about Go. I always kind of assumed Go was maybe a similar thing to chess, where there's like different scenarios that you can kind of memorize over time. It's probably got more scenarios, so it's harder to memorize. But like I think just for me, like those games don't seem as exciting as like current games. But yeah, like you're right. That's totally just my opinion. I think, Go is probably like a really good game. Chess is obviously still super popular and getting even more popular, I think. I actually have a couple of coworkers who will just like sit there and like play a chess match middle of the day just like to take a little break. And it's like they definitely aren't pulling out, arcs and having a quick little match at work. But yeah, so I mean, like I think a lot of those games, they're just like built into the culture. It could definitely happen with one of the current modern games, but like they just don't have enough time, right? Like if Monopoly came out today, shit would crash and burn probably. But since it came out in the 20s and then like everyone's just kind of know it over time, it's just like really built in. And then it becomes not even just about the game, but like there's like a social aspect to it, like people are just proud of how good they are at chess, and it becomes like this like arena where you can challenge people in, and like just gives you like bragging rights or whatever it may be. So it kind of has this like all those games have this aspect outside of the game that also really motivates people to play and to learn. But actually going back to one thing Erin said, which was really good, about how we just don't remember trash from a long time ago, because obviously it was not really super worth remembering. There was this YouTuber, I can't remember who he is. It might have been Rick Beato, but I'm not totally sure. But they had a video where they were like, was music better back in the day? So they listened to like the top 10 or whatever, like of current day, and then they listened to like the top 10 like Billboard or whatever from the 70s, and he was like, number one song from the 70s, I remember this one was playing everywhere, I fucking hated it, it was trash, it was like derivative, blah blah blah. And like number two, this one sucks, blah blah blah. And like, number three, this is a classic, Earth, Wind, and Fire, absolute gem, blah, blah, blah. And then he's going through the list, and he was like, yeah, there was a lot of trash. And he's like, I haven't heard these songs in 50 years because they were trash, and they crash and burned, and like no one remembers them now. And then he listens to like songs from the current day, and then he's like, yeah, this one I think is like a genuinely really good song. This one's also trash. It doesn't seem, he was saying in this like very small example, he's like, it doesn't seem that different over like what's in the top 10 or whatever. There's a lot of songs now that in the future might be considered absolute gems, and they're like, oh my God, you were around for The Weeknd? Oh, like that's so amazing. I can't believe it. That was a golden age. And like, we're just like, oh yeah, that's cool, But yeah, we'll circle back in 10 years and see if this is a golden age.
Yeah, we'll put a pin on it. Reminder.
All right. Tune in 10 years from now.
Thanks for tuning in to We Are Bored podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and found a little inspiration for your next game night. For more board game content and episode show notes, visit our website, wapod.com, where you'll find everything you need, including updates and more. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, We Are Bored, for reviews, playthroughs, and extra content. You can also connect with us on Instagram at We Are Bored for updates, behind-the-scenes fun, and all the board game eye candy you can handle. Until next time, keep playing, keep exploring, and remember, every roll, deal, and turn tells a story. What's yours?